The digital world moves fast, but real growth comes from real conversations. This is eCoffee with Experts, where marketers and founders share what's actually working in SEO, AI, and digital growth. Grab your coffee and fuel your mind as we chat with top minds about their wins, struggles, and lessons you won't find in a blog post. Brought to you by Digital Web Solutions, we bring real talk to help you grow your business, one episode at a time. Let's get started.
Hey everyone, Victor here, back with eCoffee with Experts. And today, hey, you guys are gonna have a blast. We have been talking so much lately about AI generated content for sales purposes. We have been talking so much about B2B sales, B2B marketing, B2C sometimes. And then I decided to bring you guys a real expert. He's so much of an expert that his site itself, the website is called b2bmarketing.net. So he's the founder of B2B Marketing, the company name, but also you're going to see that the guy knows about the market itself. But alas, let's start with it. Joe Harrison is here with us. As I said, he's the founder of B2B Marketing. The links will be down in the description below. And who wonders what we're going to be talking about? I have no idea. Joe, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm really good, Victor. Great to be here. Thanks for inviting me to be part of this.
No, of course. It's, as I said, it's a pleasure. It's an honor. I think we're going to have a blast here. And the naming says it all. You're the founder of a company called B2B Marketing. So people can expect to listen and understand a lot about this with this episode.
I hope so.
I hope so. I actually hope so, the same. Joe, why don't you start by just giving us a brief rundown of how you got it all sorted out? How did you start your own company? And even so, why did you start a B2B focused company?
Okay, well, there's a very long version of the story, but I'll try and keep it kind of like concise because we've only got an hour.
Even if it's a long one, everybody's interested to know and to understand from your mouth. So don't you worry.
Okay, so the first thing to say is that we launched the business as a magazine. The name, because the title B2B Marketing is obviously very generic, and as a website, it's a bit like, what do you actually do? But when it's on the cover of a magazine, it all makes sense.
It all makes sense.
So, and that was 22 years ago. And we wanted to launch a magazine about B2B marketing because in the UK, the marketing is a big industry and there were lots of magazines, there were about 20 magazines that focused on marketing in some form or other, but none of them looked at B2B. So if you read them, you would know there was all this complex, amazing stuff that's going on. You'd think that marketing is all about fish fingers or about Coca-Cola or about Mars bars or about Nike. You know, it wasn't there, and it completely undersold all this amazing area of B2B, which was interesting and complex. And I'm a geek and I like complexity. So we thought, I'm a business partner and I, we had this idea, could you launch a magazine? And we kind of looked around and we realized that no one else was doing it. And you think, well, is no one else doing it because they know something we don't know? Or are they not doing it because they just haven't thought about it? You know, there's just an assumption that they were more intelligent than we were. And there's one of the first kind of hurdles I got over. They weren't more intelligent. You know, I'm not saying I'm a Nobel Prize winning genius. I'm absolutely not. But you know, you just think that, you know, the kind of the reason, often the best ideas are the ones that seem really obvious. And it seemed more obvious, and the more we thought about it, the more obvious it seemed. So we went ahead and created the magazine. And it's there's a long, that was 22 years ago. A lot happened in that time. The magazine actually closed. We stopped printing the magazine 3 or 4 years ago because
it lasted a long time.
It did last a long time. Yeah. I mean, what happened is we built, what all publishers do is you build out a kind of ecosystem of products around it. So you have the magazine in the middle, and you have conferences, training, awards programs, advertising services, and various other things around the edge of that. And often those things make more money than magazines do. And, you know, over time, the magazine went from monthly to quarterly, and people had a lot of affection for it, but it didn't really stand on its own as a business. In the meantime, like kind of life moved on. And interestingly, it was COVID that really made us go, okay, we've really got to address this. The magazine isn't really fit for purpose anymore. We haven't got a what do we go to? So COVID gave us the necessity and the time and space to go and go, okay, actually, what should it be? And so what came out the other end of that is was a membership based around a community, which is called Propolis, which I'm sure we can kind of talk about a bit later on. And that's a much richer, much more immersive product for marketers, a much deeper and more targeted level of information, rather than a magazine where you kind of curate stuff and you hope that people will find interesting, and they should do, but you're not asking them what their specific needs are and providing them that data. And Propolis aims to do that.
And it's interesting because you talk with a lot of passion. Nowadays, 2025, a lot of people would shiver whenever they hear B2B. You know, it's becoming, especially on LinkedIn, it's becoming somewhat of an exhausting conversation. You have so many companies and people saying that they are the masters of, and then you input whatever market you're in. But since we're talking about B2B, they're masters of the B2B sales. And you have so many content being created about, I have just made $100 million in 24 hours by doing this exact formula done on ChatGPT. Comment here below with the keyword sales, and I'll drop you a DM. And that's by itself a sales machine. People are very cautious whenever the B2B term comes into place. But I feel like what you and I can do in this episode is actually showcasing how it's not a monster and how it's not like something that it's harming the world. No, we're actually here because we understand the value of negotiating between business and business, which sometimes it's what we can talk about. So you did great by explaining how you got into it. It's actually very interesting to know. And then my next question to you, since you were already a founder and then you became an editor-in-chief, our speaker, and then podcaster, and then salesperson, and then marketing person, how did it all evolve? Was it a day where you woke up and you said to yourself, wow, I should really start putting my face across different medias? Or was it a natural evolution of Joel?
Well, that's a very interesting question. And I guess it's actually a combination of the two, because I have a business partner who's no longer really involved in the business. And actually, I'm not operationally involved in the business anymore either. But he is a very extrovert person. He's the loudest person in the room generally, but he was terrified of getting up on stage. So it was very interesting. What really became apparent to me very early on is that we needed to do events and we needed to have someone who's able to get up on stage and do that. And I'm not naturally an extrovert. I'm naturally more an introvert. But it wasn't going to be him, so it had to be me. So and I thought, well, I have to learn this skill. So the first thing was that. So that was a moment. But then that extends from I'm comfortable hosting, I'm comfortable being part of a panel, I'm confident actually presenting myself, and then you get into things like webinars and you realize, okay, so I can then talk live on the internet and I can do podcasts. But I think I guess there probably was another switch because I've always tried to be focusing on all the stuff I've done historically for us as an organization, as a brand. But actually quite recently, because the business has moved to a place where it's very mature now and we have a CEO who's doing a brilliant job, yes. I'm not necessarily in the business. So I've given that attitude to go out and go, okay, well, I'm going to do my own stuff under my own name now. I'm going to leverage 22 years of building up my connections and my reputation, my own personal brand, and do stuff under my own names. So that's what I'm doing now. So I'm still involved in B2Bmarketing.net. I'm still one of the major shareholders of that. I'm still the board director of the company, but I have no operation involvement at all. And what I'm doing is building up my own podcasts and my speaking activity, my advisory work and my influencer work. And it's great to be unshackled from all of those things. As a business owner, you spend everyone else's problem is your problem. Mm-hmm. And I'm really relieved that it's not anymore, and that I can do the things which I want to do, and I can not do the things that I don't want to do. I'm investing in building this brand that I built for myself, and I'm enjoying the opportunity to spend time in the market meeting people because it's a wonderful industry, and there's so many great people in it, and different stories to tell about different aspects of it. Because you were saying you're an SEO company. I don't know too many SEO companies. I know lots of creative agencies, brand agencies, PR agencies, content agencies. So it's so rich with different stories and different ways of driving success.
I imagine. Do you feel like if you were to start now, if you were to start exactly as you did, okay, nothing changed. But if you were to start now, would you push yourself sooner to do the content as you were mentioning about podcast, video, and everything else, or would you still try and hide yourself from the webcam here?
Well, as an editor, I often felt of a printed magazine. There's always a feeling that you have to have an ego, right?
That's true.
So if you don't have an ego, you're not really doing the job properly because you've got to believe in yourself, because there are people who will. So I never felt like I was hiding myself. But what I did feel was like that there wasn't the opportunity to put myself forward in the way that I can do now. And there wasn't the immediacy. And I think the other thing which you should talk about in this juncture is, and I'm talking about this a lot in my content, I don't like the word, but there's not a better word. Influencer marketing. It is a genuine thing, and in B2B it has been consumer for years, obviously. But what it looks like and how it works in B2B is really very different. And what I realized about 2 years ago, Ogilvy produced this chart. What are influencers? And influencers basically are journalists and speakers. And so I kind of like, and it made sense. It would feel like I was cheating to redefine the topic, but it made sense. It's kind of what I always have been, except that I haven't been putting myself forward explicitly. It's been brand first, me as a vehicle for the brand, or and now actually, I think that not only is the personal circumstances change, but also the wider media landscape has changed. There's so much content out there. Everyone's a content engine. Everyone's a publisher. Actually, what people are looking for is individuals, humans that they trust, and they can buy into their brand and their objectivity and authenticity in communicating and sorting the wood from the trees is an expression we have in England.
What you just said is exactly what happened here with the company, with DWS. As you said to yourself, SEO agency, working with a lot of people, nothing extra. Then comes the Brazilian guy who likes to talk, tell jokes and laugh during video conferences. And I think it was as clear as like woke up the next day and people were like, you're going to become a podcaster. And we're going to put you on conferences. And if everything goes according, you will be a speaker in conferences. And I was like, guys, I'm so shy. It's so hard for me to get out of this bubble. So, and a lot of companies are right now actually commenting over with me that they would like to have their own Victors. Not saying that I'm a specimen, a rare specimen. No, they just say it easier. Like I would like to have somebody who's as chatty and comfortable on camera as you. So this is indeed the growth of the influencer. I get what you're saying. When the influencer marketing started, it was only about young girls who were dancing or jacked up guys who were showcasing nice cars. I get what you're saying by you don't want to become like the role of the influencer because it is somewhat tainted, right? Just as B2B sales is, as I was talking on the intro. My question to you then would be, getting to know you more, Joe, as the influencer doing TikTok dances about why you should spend money on B2B. What do you think the companies are getting still wrong nowadays? The B2B companies are getting wrong.
In terms of content?
In terms of content, yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think there's a general trend towards humanization, which we are shifting towards, and people are understanding that people are human and buy as humans. But there's something about when do any kind of creative activity, any creative work. Particularly if you're a product company, people just this burning desire to put low about feeds and speeds into the communication. Yeah. Nobody cares, right? Or they do care, but they care a long way down into the procurement. The detailed specification, or they don't care at a kind of a brand or awareness level, and you're not going to get seen. So that's the thing which I think we've seen a lot of progress on this, and there have been some great pioneers. The person who always stands out to me, Paul Cash. So you want another guest your podcast, interview Paul. He's brilliant.
Oh, nice to know. Thank you.
He wrote a book called Humanizing B2B, and it's a great book. And you're seeing this across all aspects. Actually, we did a piece of research. So we run a big awards program every year called the B2B Marketing Awards, funny that. And we get about 500 entries a year. And last year, what I did with the help of AI was I actually used, because so many entries and they're 1,200 words each, very hard to understand the trends from that. But AI, brilliant. She put all the entries into AI and it did lots of analysis. But one of the things I did was say, tell me the 5 trends, the 5 kind of breakthrough trends that you're seeing that's going to transforming it. And 5 of those are really about humanization, or about trying to kind of make your marketing more human, more relatable, more engaging. And I can dig in a bit further to that. I mean, one of them was about anti-corporate messaging. So specifically not trying to look like a corporate, trying to position yourselves to do witty and irrelevant things. Another one is using employee-based communication. So you're trying to create those ambassadors, those influencers within your organization and be authentic with that. And the last one was about radical transparency, where you're actually trying to surface actual problems within a market and like, okay, look, push that to the top, right? So make people quite uncomfortable. But the biggest problem probably was around consumer grade entertainment, and this is something you can only do if you've got quite big budgets. And actually that's not true. It often requires quite big budgets, but you can do it through audio via lesser budgets. It's where you're creating content which people would readily and happily consume in their leisure time, in their non-work time, and it stands up to scrutiny with some of the stuff you get from a streamer like Netflix, something like that. And the brilliant example from Travelport, which won about 3 or 4 categories last year, absolutely fantastic. And what they did, they took an influencer and they sent him around the world. He had to navigate, travel to these exotic locations, using their system, which is a travel expenses platform. So it was seeded subtly within there, but it made for just great entertainment. And so I think that's what people are getting wrong. It is getting better, but often people, they get the rabbit in the headlights and they go, well, yes, but speeds and feeds. Or look at my amazing brand up here, rather than thinking about customers as humans, because we don't have we're not automatons. We buy things as consumers.
Talking about my own experience and what I see, not talking about general things. I don't have any data to back it up. I'm seeing a very big shift towards humans for humans, human-sided company, people-facing company, people-first mindset. We're getting away from quantity over quality, and we're actually shifting towards quality over quantity. It's no longer, for those that I'm watching about, it's no longer about sending 1,000 emails a day for 1,000 different companies. It's about creating even a community and making sure that you have your ambassador, that you'll have a brand not to sell, but just to showcase that you're alive. Right, so I think we can and we should start talking about how much AI has changed the B2B marketing world, how much my life was different before ChatGPT, and how I am right now at this moment unable to write a single email without first screening it over the bot that I created, which makes sure that everything's set according to my preferences. You for sure didn't expect this 20 years ago, 22 years ago. You weren't expecting this 5 years ago. Neither nobody was. But do you already have a set expectation for the next 5 years in regards to B2B marketing? How it's gonna change? It's already changing. It's already changed. But how it's going to be in this foreseeable future?
Well, it's changing faster than it's ever changed before.
Yes, it is.
And that's exciting, but it's also terrifying for everybody.
Terrified, yeah.
Making predictions is a really hard thing to do, because on one hand you've got your Salesforce have just kind of launched their new marketing platform. I was talking at an event yesterday when there was marketing technology agency talking about this, and they were saying how they're basically kind of saying that what you'll be able to do is basically you just prompt the AI engine, and it delivers the whole campaign, everything, messaging, creative, the word go. So that's one vision of the future, but there's a lot of challenges associated with using that, like because companies are cautious, and there are all kinds of issues around AI, basically scraping the copying stuff out there, and all kinds of ways that could fall down. So, but there's that vision of the future as they're presenting. At the same time, I know so many B2B companies, B2B marketing companies are struggling to implement AI at even a basic level in terms of getting their team to, having the sign off to use it, having the budget to use it, and then convincing marketers to actively start using it. So there's all kinds of you've got this outlandish vision of the future over here, and you've got this practical, very slow progress at the other end. In the middle, you've got, there's a lot of layoffs and redundancies still going through B2B companies. Quite an alarming number still. And I'm sure that a lot of that is because of the kind of the Trump tariff fallout. But some of that is because that's compounded by the fact that you have CEOs and CFOs going, oh, right, AI's going to do all this marketing stuff for us, right? So we don't really, they didn't really think that marketing was a thing anyway. They thought they could do marketing because marketing's just easy. It's pictures, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, that's fine. What could possibly go wrong with that?
Push a button and it works, right?
It's fine. Yeah, it's just sales support after all. There's no strategy behind this. There's no longer term perspective.
I don't care about marketing. I care about sales.
Exactly. So they've just, all that's done is embolden those people and encourage them to kind of go, oh, actually, if we can make a cut, let's cut that CMO. It's a very expensive line in the budget. And then you have junior marketing people trying to talk to the CEO. And so it's kind of very mixed picture. I know it's what you're asking. I guess the point is we are going to see, I think what we're already seeing is marketers in organizations that are progressive being freed up to do some of the things that they do better. I think it's fantastic, the opportunities for creative. Previously, one of the barriers and obstacles in AI or in B2B creative was that you couldn't have the budget to do some things you could imagine. Now, if you can imagine it, you can do it. And then there's exciting things like synthetic data we were talking about yesterday, where you can get over the challenges associated with generating good results from. So there's all kinds of ways we're going to see. It's very hard to paint a picture of the future because the implications are multifaceted and varied, and also moving at different speeds. I do hope we'll see marketers, the positivity. I'm sorry, I'm trying to get to a conclusion for you.
Don't worry.
Is marketers better able to do better, more strategic, creative marketing faster and more impactfully. But there are a lot of obstacles to getting towards that.
That is true. That is true. Not only a lot of obstacles, and yes, a lot of obstacles, not only tech-wise, but people-wise, as you were just saying, the C-levels the CEO who thinks he can vanish with the CMO, or those that don't understand the importance of marketing. So actually, I think this is actually a very good point to make sure that the audience understands your value. And by your, I mean you, literally, Joe. So talking about your expertise and the things, even you said so yourself, you're not on the front end anymore at B2B marketing, but let's pretend you were. Why would companies talk to you? Why should they be talking to you? Why should they be listening to us here, to the podcast that you're at, to everything that you're already done?
Well, okay, yeah. So it's very important I qualify what I do. So I'm not involved at B2B marketing, but I'm kind of setting out my own brand, as I said. So I think we talked about this earlier on. So what I do, probably there's three things I do. One is I do advisory work. So I work with companies, behind the scenes to help them position, understand the market.
Perfect.
I do my own content creation and activities, and that involves collaboration. I have podcasts and articles I do on social media, and that involves sometimes co-creating and sometimes creating and sponsored, sometimes just doing stuff because it's interesting. And there's a theme generally, the podcast, around trust and in B2B, because I think that's a really important theme this year. And then the last thing is speaking stuff. So that relates then back to the trust topic. So I do go speak in events and I take part in panel discussions. So just generally be a thought leader and someone with objectivity in the market. So why should they work with me? Well, I don't think there are very few people. I really don't like kind of putting myself on a pedestal, but you've asked me to do this. So
I did.
So there are, I've spent 22 years flying the flag for B2B marketing, right? And in the UK, there wasn't really an industry there 22 years ago. And I think this, in Europe generally, it's a homogenous zone. It's still a bit behind. In the US, it's more advanced and there are lots of different people, but they tend to be banging drums from a different perspective. Whereas my job has been to be the objective, independent commentator and try and be, the kind of, the trusted broker of information and trying to take an objective perspective. So that's really where I'm positioning myself. And that's in the absence of someone, I'm kind of bridging that old world media, magazines, in new world media, which is kind of influencers and social media and podcasts. So I don't think there's anybody like me, and I don't think quite like me. And given how things are changing there won't ever be, because that world's gone.
Or you would create yourself an AI bot like Joe Harrison, and then the Harrison would be like AI, Joe Harrison, and then this is the bot for you, and then you can sell it over to people.
I mean, that has been suggested to me, and I think something I probably should take more seriously than I am.
I think, Joe, we're laughing about this idea right now. Maybe in 2 years from now, this can be like a standard thing,
I think you could do it. It's just that I don't know how to do it, and I got to work out how that fits in with my activities and my work stream. And also, I did a fantastic podcast myself with a guy called Steve Mudd, who works with Propolis, who's an AI. He runs a company called Talentless AI, and he's talking about digital avatars, and there's a trust issue associated with that, right? If you start, if you're going to replicate yourself and you're going to put that AI version of yourself out there into the market, we just don't. It's just uncomfortable. It might not be in 2 years' time, like you say, but it is now.
Maybe because the tech is still not there, maybe.
Yeah.
Or maybe because, I don't know, people are getting so scared of being replaced that they are already kind of pushing away any AI interactions they may find. I'm also noticing this. There is a tool called Hey Gem, not sponsored, but they do the avatars. As you were saying about, I'm actually want to discuss with your friend. I'm literally not here to showcase any other tools, but I did utilize this one where I had to repeat some sentences on the webcam, and it would create Victor's avatar. And Joe, I promise you, the first time that I did it, I didn't know that it was the outcome, because it was a friend of mine who asked me to read the screen. And then hours later, I forgot about it. That same person came with the AI Victor. If I send that to my father, I'm not even going to say my father, because then we can start discussing about age and digital maturity. No. If I were to send that to a 25 years old colleague who is way more used to AI, way more used to technology, it would still fool them. So it is becoming a very dire moment in our lives where we're like, how do we use it, right? Yeah. And there are so many overusing it that you already have a percentage of the market that is like, I'm never touching anyone who uses it, or I'm never touching anyone who comes with me with something like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's hard to talk about. I agree with you.
And I think actually, and the opinions will vary between one person will think one thing and the next
Super.
person will think something else. And so you can't make a rule for the only rule you can be safe with is by not using it, right? Because
Yeah.
you don't know. So I guess my question is, can the world cope with two Victors? I don't know if there's that,
I
that
don't
much
know.
enthusiasm. It's a
Yeah.
challenge. That's the
Yeah.
big deal.
And not only that, but whenever we think about it, how valuable is Victor to have an AI avatar of him? No, who am I to feel like I should have an avatar of myself? This is another question that people are asking. If it's something different, let's talk about London. London has a concert of ABBA, the holographic one. It's not AI, but it's a holographic concert of ABBA. This makes sense. ABBA has the demand for a scalable show done through holograms.
Yeah.
But the rest of the agency, the B2B companies, do they have such of a authority to replicate themselves through AI? I don't know. I don't think they
Yeah.
do. And
I agree
this,
with you.
and I think this is what's harming a lot of companies, because they feel like, let's just scale myself with AI. But you were, and I'm not saying this like talking bad about a company. No, even on my own self, like I am not somebody knowledgeable and not in the market to create myself an avatar just to save my own time. No, people need to see I'm still in the moment where I need to give my time to people.
Yeah. I think one of the things which is driving the influencer piece is authenticity.
That is true.
You can't, if you're becoming a bot, you're becoming an avatar, you're not already, you've just torpedoed that, right? You
Yeah.
can't have both, right? So I'm not saying that doesn't mean there aren't uses for those things, right?
There are.
But it's the right tool in the right place.
One use case that I like is for training purposes. Still on the B2B market. So we have a tool, a SaaS. I sell the tool. Now I have a training. I think the first onboarding should be human interaction. But then on the future, like 3 months from now, you have a SaaS, which is like a yearly contract. Maybe on the third month, you can already have training videos of Victor through AI. That's different. People know Victor. They know that Victor exists. They know that Victor is accessible. But maybe I like working during midnight. There are a lot of midnight oilers right now. So instead of calling Victor, which I know will be offline, let me have his avatar.
I completely agree. And there's another one as well, which is I work with a company called RealFlow, and I do work with what they do. And B2B marketing website uses this. Our CEO, Richard, we know that people, when they go to a critical page and they're trying to sign up, they much rather, they feel they want to get a message from somebody senior to address the pain point they're addressing in that particular page. And so, we've done some videos of RealFlow, it uses exactly that technology. It's not that, it is him, but it's him. He hasn't recorded every single message. And what it means now is that you can then go back and then record other messages as new use cases arise. And I don't think that's a problem either, right? He's not pretending to be something that he's not.
Exactly.
So very useful, but just not for everything.
And then why did I spend this last minutes talking about it? Because we're talking about what is being overused right now, which is the AI stuff, the AI content, video, text, messages, DMs, whatever. But I actually want to know from your side and for your experience about the underused one. Is there an underused one where it's a good one, it generates results, but at the end of the day, you're kind of let down because not a lot of companies are utilizing it?
Well, I think it's probably quite appropriate, but I mean, this context, but I think audio is.
I agree. It's not overused. I never used it myself.
And I think podcasts, we're seeing tremendous growth in there. And I talked to a friend of mine recently who runs an agency saying, we're thinking about running a podcast, but it's a very saturated market. Well, I mean, how many people are there in the world, right? And then if you align the podcast with the influencer and it's about the personality, it's a way of enabling somebody, and that could be a brand as well, to consume content in a moment where they are doing something else. And so you're inviting them to spend time with you when you're walking the dog, washing the dishes, doing the gardening, any of those things, commuting. And that is incredibly powerful. And I just think it's such a powerful medium. I don't think it's not just podcasting as well. There was a fantastic campaign that we had at the awards. An agency called Gravity was working with a leading airline manufacturer for airlines. I think it might be Whitney Pratt or somebody like that. And they were, again, this is about technical specifications, but engine noise is a really big deal for when you're specifying an engine because of where planes land and take off. You don't want to. So they turned this fetishization of noise into a thing, and they said a campaign where you could compare engine noises, and it was so.
That's very nice.
Beautifully done, and it was very creative, and it turned the problem into the solution, and it appealed to the geekery of those people, those engineers, and there are other means of it as well. It's a very audio is such a personal channel, so I think I don't think we've exploited the benefit of that anything like.
Well, I have seen B2B experts, the sales ones, talking about the power of sending a voice note through LinkedIn, where not everybody's doing it. And sometimes if you are doing a cold outreach, having your voice set is already way better than just having your words on an email on the screen. Because with voice, and then use voice note, podcast, even video notes, right? Because then it's you. There's no miscommunication. It's you. It's you smiling, or it's you angry, or it's you perceiving an emotion instead of words that can be interpreted differently. So it is actually one of my questions would be, podcasts are indeed exploding, as you said so yourself. Everybody has one. I would ask you, how do you see the podcast shifting the authority game, and what's the key to making one podcast actually matter? Because if we are going to be talking about it, then let's get your idea of what can be a nice and good enough podcast to have nowadays.
Well, so I'm on this game myself, right? Because B2B Marketing as a brand has had a podcast for about 5 years. Probably not a very early adopter, but it's a very well-established podcast. It gets like 1,000 listens every episode, that kind of thing.
It is a very well-established one. Congratulations. 1,000 per episode is a very good number.
So I've started my own podcast, so I'm nowhere near that, right? But at the same time, so I'm learning all the tricks of the trade. But one of the things that's become across really prominently is commitment, right? It's not going to be something which is probably you're not going to do with 4 episodes. That's it. I've cracked it. So in a way that you might with other mechanisms, it's a long game. So that's the first thing. Is it's not a short. It's a brand play. It's a long-term commitment, and it's about delivering your own authority and your own integrity, and demonstrating your expertise and what you care in the market. It's also about then understanding that one audio podcast is the only one way in which you can deploy that content. What you must be doing is to be utilizing that content in multiple formats. And it's fascinating right now. I mean, I'm pretty much sure you said this is going on YouTube, right? Because YouTube is kind of exploding as a podcast mechanism. So it's a different in consumption pattern than it would be for audio. Not better, not worse, different. And then obviously you have Instagram, and then what I do in my podcast is every time I do a podcast, I then use that and create an article off the back of it, and I publish that on LinkedIn. So I have a newsletter, and then you can slice that up, and you can create extracts and excerpts. So for me it's an anchor point for your content strategy, and it's just not a quick win. But it's a very, very resonant, powerful win.
It is. The long game, as you said so yourself, the consistency part of things, it can be inserted in so many different methods inside of B2B marketing. Posting on LinkedIn has to be consistent. Outreaching, if you are going to be outreaching, it's not only 2 touches. You need to do more, or if you're doing more, it needs to be consistent. If you're chasing your dreams, it needs to be consistent. It's the key, as the sentence says. Consistency is the key. And you have been consistent with your own career. We spent the last 30 minutes talking about how you started with magazines, you went to video, you went to speaking conferences. And as far as I know, you're writing yourself a book. Is that it?
Well, you know what? I've come to the decision. I haven't really announced this on social, but I've decided I'm not going to write a book at this point. I'm going to write a digital ebook, for the wrong word. I'm using a platform called Turtle, and but the conclusion I came to is that actually I wanted to write a book to give me opportunities to do all the things I mentioned earlier on, but the opportunities are happening anyway. I was perhaps just being really candid. I was probably being too modest about my connections and resonance in the market. And I've been so touched, having started to go out and that people have come to me and said, you don't need that, Joel. You've got that traction already. And the fact that I'm as busy as I am is indicative of that. So I'm putting it, I'm going to write an ebook where because my podcast is around trust, and I'm focusing particularly on thought leadership in the age of AI. So I'm going to put an ebook together, which is will be quite rich in content, but I can update it and people can download it for free. A lot of time and resources goes into writing a book, and I want to do it as an intellectual exercise, but I don't want to do it if it means I have to spend a lot of time, and time is money. And then it takes a year to publish, because it will. 6 months to write, a year, 6 months to publish, and then there's a very good chance that it will be obsolete before it's even published, and that seems like a pointless exercise.
I see what you're talking about. Yeah, because as we were saying a few minutes ago, everything's already so new. I don't even know how we're going to be doing things 5 months from now in communication terms. I don't know how it's going to be. Maybe they do. Google, actually, they're starting, not sure if you saw this, they were showcasing it in their conference. It's a cabin booth, which will be at first enterprise focus only, but it's like the Google Meet. You walk into this cabin of Google. It has cameras. I think it's like a box, and it has cameras all over it. And it's recording. All the cameras are recording. So what the other person from the other side of the screen will see, because they are also in a booth, what they'll see is like a hologram of you, but not in an interactive one. It's like, it's very hard to explain. I'll make sure to mention this over on YouTube so that people can click and watch, but it's already a different way of doing video itself.
Is this why you did the Abba Voyage thing earlier on? Because this is like the Abba Voyage version of meetings, where you have a holographic version of the participants.
You see, there is that, and there's the Apple Vision Pro, where you have the avatars themselves and you see people on the living room with you. So this is, right now, this is not accessible. This is expensive. Maybe 5 years from now, this will be the standard, and we'll all have booths inside our homes where you're getting scanned and you get a holograph version of yourself. And then maybe B2B sales meetings will be done for holographs. We don't know. That's the thing about it, right?
You've said it. I think you're absolutely onto something. I'd never even thought of that, but I don't think that's very far away, is it?
No.
All you've got to have is presumably a couple of strategically placed not now, but a couple of strategically placed cameras, and then a headset, and then presumably you could literally be in a room with somebody.
Like if we were to tell anybody 10 years ago that we could have, that podcasts would be something everybody was doing, people would go crazy. Like, but Victor, is everybody like renting a studio? What about lighting? What about sound? What about communication? How do you make sure that a person from London has a podcast with you in Porto? It would be crazy to imagine that we're doing this through our phones. I'm home, you're at your home. We're very far from each other. It's not reachable in the single day without a plane, but we're having it. So in 5 years from now, what are we going to have in regards to podcasting and video and content? I don't know, but I'm looking forward to see.
Yeah, it's going to be fun getting there, isn't it?
It is. And I hope that by the time we have the holographic one, we can have another podcast.
Yeah, I hope so too. That would be fun.
That would be fun. That would be fun. And Joel, that's it for today, for the 2D version of ourselves here. Thank you for being on the show and for sharing everything. For those that are watching us, you're going to have all the links down the description below. I believe highly that if you are into the B2B market, you should start following Joe, and you should start following his company, even though he said so yourself in a very humble way, that he's not on the front side anymore. It's very good to be connected nonetheless, right?
Please, thank you, Victor, for inviting me. And please do connect with me, because if you're interested in B2B marketing, that's what I've done for 22 years. I've lived it and breathed it, and it's kind of my life's works.
It is.
I'm pretty passionate about the whole thing, and I always want to build my network further.
That's it. Mr. B2B was here with us, guy. Thank you so much, Joe, for taking your time and your effort to being on the show. We wish you all the best. And for everyone else, catch you the next time. Bye-bye, everyone.